You know, Denise, what you're describing, it makes me think of the experience of a lot of our clients who tend to be, in general, very highly educated, successful professionals. And so they have this added layer of shame because people look at them as role models in the community or like the perfect this. And so often we hear things like, well, you know, a friend might say, I never thought you would fall for someone like that, you know, or how could you have gotten involved, that not understanding that this affects not high conflict divorce, but domestic violence affects 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to understand that the reason that you were targeted was not because you're foolish. It's because you are so amazing and so successful and empathic and creative and responsible and all those wonderful things that's what made you a target.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Love, Laughs, and Lessons. And I'm Dr. Frankie.
And I'm Denise Ray. And today we are super excited to welcome Lisa Johnson and Chris Barry, high conflict divorce strategists and the founders of Been There, Got Out, which I was like, ooh. Lisa and Chris specialize in helping people navigate the most extreme family court situations, what they call battling a personal terrorist. Their clients often belong to the "my lawyer says this is the craziest case I've ever seen" club, and many end up representing themselves in court. Through personalized coaching, a weekly legal abuse support group, their podcast, book, and their online course series From Fear to Fierce in Family Court, Lisa and Chris guide survivors towards reclaiming their power, protecting their family, and minimizing the emotional and financial toll of the legal system. Lisa is a legal powerhouse in her own right, representing herself in dozens of court appearances, even winning in an appellate court. Her case is now cited as case law in Connecticut. Her testimony was also instrumental in passing Jennifer's Law, which legally recognized coercive control as a form of domestic violence. Wow. Chris brings a powerful blend of legal insight, marketing savvy, and heart. Certified high conflict divorce coach with a background in financial planning, Chris co-hosts the Been There, Got Out podcast and is the architect behind their new course on writing high conflict parenting plans. Together, they are revolutionizing how people survive and even thrive through the most brutal divorces. So welcome, Lisa and Chris. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
As you should be. Sure. Yeah, I had a divorce and it was rough. I could have really used the two of you. Mm. Where were you?
A lot of people say that.
We were probably mired in our own stuff at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us, how did you come to this work? Why? Give us all the information, the background and everything. We want all the details, and then we'll get into the deeper.
Chris, you want to go?
Well, how we got into this work, we were both at the beginning of what ended up being long divorces in our own, from our own previous marriages. And we met and started a romantic relationship. And as things, it just took a few months, we were kind of like, wow, this is crazy. This is much harder than I expected it to be and all of that. And I was trying to be supportive of Lisa as she was going through her high conflict divorce. She was trying to be supportive of me as I was going through mine. And then I'll never forget, there was one day I was, my ex called me a narcissist. And I had learned about her projection and that we have a saying like, every accusation is an admission in our world, right? Because they project what they do onto others. So I said, well, if she's calling me a narcissist, it might be something worth looking into. And I Googled and found, I think it was on Wikipedia or something, a description of what narcissism really is, not how most people use the word. And I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I'm dealing with. And I sent the link to Lisa. I was at work at the time and I got together with her that evening and she said, oh my God, me too. So we started this kind of journey together of figuring out what to do and what needed to be handled differently about our cases, and to try and you just manage and get through it. And in the process, I remember standing in Lisa's kitchen and saying, if I could go back in time and redo my own divorce, I could save half of the $300,000 it cost.
I always say more.
Yeah. Now if I say half, Lisa says more. So probably truthfully, it's more like 2/3 I could have saved. But it took 3 years. I probably could have saved half to 2/3 of that time. And it obviously was too late. We don't have time travel at this point in time. So it was too late for me to hit redo. But it occurred to us like, oh my gosh, I bet there are a lot of people going through this and unnecessarily struggling through their own divorces. And we said, well, it started as a book project, and then that kind of morphed into coaching, and it became a book project again, and it's just sort of exploded from there. But a lot of people have these problems.
But we really niched down because first, when we started, we thought, oh, we can help everyone in different varieties of toxic relationships. But at the time, I was in court constantly, and I thought, let's focus on what we know really well. And I had never heard the term legal abuse, and I found it buried in a judge's manual from Washington State from 2015. I thought, this is my life. This is it. And let's start a support group and just see if there's anyone else who's going through something similar. And I thought, if we can get 2 people first week, great. We got 12 people from all over the world, and it just exploded from there. So that was a little less than 4 years ago. And Chris got his certification, and we hung out our shingle on our Instagram account. And since then, it's just been endless. New people all the time.
What is legal abuse?
So legal abuse is when someone's ex is basically using the legal system to, we say, wear them down and bleed them dry financially. So officially, they're using the justice system to control, harass, intimidate, coerce, or impoverish you. And there's ways that they do it. It's either they're constantly filing what we call frivolous motions or motions without merit. So you're stuck dropping everything all the time and being dragged back to court and spending tons of time and money and energy.
Right.
Or like in my situation where my ex refused to comply with our agreement, and I was forced to go back to court again and again and again to make sure that he complied with the parts of the order.
And before, at that time, and this is a long time ago, this is before we started Been There, Got Out, Lisa was considering restarting her career as a high school English teacher, which she had done years ago. And she was starting down that path, and it looked very promising. But then she was like, I can't take this job full time when I know I'm going to need to be in court like all the time. It just made it impossible. It becomes unmanageable. In fact, the word we hear most often when we meet new people is overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed.
Yeah. Just tired. I mean, it's enough with the trauma from the breakup, but then to have, you're still feeling attacked on an everyday basis, which was my story as well. So
really?
Legal abuse, like you wouldn't believe. And unmet, like we had shared custody, and my person wouldn't be there to pick up the kids, and so I have to leave work and go get my kids from the babysitter. It was horrific. It was horrific.
Yeah.
So this legal abuse goes on without any real, there's not a way out of it. People just, because I'm imagining you file a motion, and then every time you have to respond, you have to show up, you have to write
That's right. You have to answer. You have to be there. And if you don't show up, you're in contempt.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you have to drop everything, no matter what. So that's why we compare it to living with your own personal terrorist. You can't live your life. And besides the actual physical things you do, you always live with this sense of dread. Like, when is the next bomb going to drop? What's the next thing that's going to happen? And you feel it like in the simplest things. So for me, it was like going out to the mailbox. I'd be scared to look for the mail because I'd be like, what's the next thing that's coming from court? Am I going to be served some other thing or some opposition to what I filed, or be accused of ridiculous things, or getting emails? And if I see a court or my ex's attorney's name, I'd just be like, oh. Even getting orders when they were in my favor, it was terrifying just to see it. I'd reading them, I'd be shaking, and losing my voice in court. It's just like everything all the time. The trauma is compounded because it's not just what you're dealing with but all that outside stuff, like what's going to hit me next.
So how do you, for someone who's listening and it's resonating and they're like, oh my gosh, that's happening to me right now, what do you recommend?
Oh, okay. So it's not easy.
How long do we have?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is to understand that this happens to, in America alone, about 80,000 people. Because most people think my life is so crazy. I mean, that's how I felt, like so crazy. Nobody understands this. And it defies logic. So know that it happens to a lot more people than you think, but it is a very tiny percentage of situations. And so you need to connect with people that understand and can help you, support you emotionally, as well as what we call through the marathon mindset, that sort of accepting that this is not something that's going to end soon, because your ex is the opposite of most people who want to go on with their lives. They want to keep it going as long as possible. We often say that once they get out of the day-to-day abuse, they only have 3 ways to still get at you: money, your kids, and the court. And money and the court go hand in hand, and kids last the longest. And that's why we focus on that as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know.
So intense. And the divorce rate is like, they're still saying it's 50%. I'm like, no, they've been saying it's 50% for decades. And I'm looking around in my practice and I'm like, way higher.
Way
Come on, let's be real.
That's right.
Yeah. LA, it's much higher, I think, from the rest of the country. We have a lot of clients there.
Wow. So how are people, like, how do you kind of, are you working with people? Like, how are you intervening and supporting people, helping them get through all this?
Well, so the Lisa mentioned the support group that we have, and that's just like a small portion of like how we spend our time. But I think that's so critical, as Lisa said, connecting with people who understand, because hopefully you've got a support network of friends and family who love you and are there for you and all of that. But these situations are so crazy that a lot of times, you'll tell your story, oh, my ex did this or that, or the judge said this or that. And the person is like, if they don't really know this stuff, they kind of doubt it. Like, really? That sounds crazy. That sounds crazy. Are you sure?
Or what's wrong with you?
Yeah. And that just perpetuates, it's unintentional. It comes from a place of love, but it also comes from a place of ignorance. And it perpetuates that feeling that the person had. They were gaslit, they were whatever in the relationship. And it's more of the same. I'm not believed. I don't have a center. I don't have my foundation. And so it's so important. Like, those people are important. That support network, the amateur support network, the unexpert support network is really important, but understand the constraints that they have in terms of the support they can offer, because this is just, it's so weird. It's our world where we spend every day, all day, is so weird.
Yeah. Well, so some of the ways that we help people besides the general support group is we help people do what's called take strategic oversight of their case, and recognize that these cases are only about 10% of the ones that exist. And so they have to learn to run their case like a business. Know that you're going to be spending a lot more time on this. You can't just give a lawyer a bunch of money and say, now you save my life and take care of it. Like, you need to really step in and step up and understand what's going on. You need to proofread everything. You need to take a more collaborative approach with the attorney and recognize that your ex is not going to follow the normal cadence of this situation. And so we do a lot with teaching appropriate ways to negotiate, to mediate with a personality disordered individual, which is, again, defies logic. So you can't come to the table thinking that they're going to be fair and do what's best for the kids, which is what everyone thinks that everyone's going to be like, but they're not. It's about themselves. So how do you negotiate with someone who really just cares about themselves first? Has to be done differently. We teach proper presentation, how to present properly, not just in court, but to a custody evaluator, how to choose with the right attorney, how to get the best therapist for your child. We teach how to put your documentation together properly, among other things. But what we teach more than anything is something we call strategic communication. And we just released a course on it as part of Fear to Fearsome Family Court. It's called How to Communicate with Your Ex Without Destroying Your Case or Losing Your Mind. Because that is the number one thing that gets people. And so we teach people how to communicate to their ex, but always for this invisible audience that we know is going to be getting involved with the case like this. So you have to be very, very careful that you have what's called clean hands. And so we help them learn how to do this. And in the process, it really starts turning the power dynamic around and helps people heal faster. And it also establishes a really excellent paper trail, not for if, but when they return to court.
Mm-hmm. And how long do people generally work with you? Like,
Oh, we've had, yeah, this has been interesting. So the short answer is as long as it takes, and it takes a while, right? Because the wheels turn slowly in the family court system most of the time. But we've had, it's been interesting lately, people who we worked with as far back as when we first started the coaching side of the business, who we haven't heard from in years, come back and say like, "Oh, I've got this issue or that issue. Are you guys still available?" We're like, "Yeah." So it can be intermittent. My divorce took 3 years. Lisa's took 1, but then, and so that sounds like 1 in the win column for Lisa, but not at all, because she was back in court for 8 or 9 years after it was settled.
Yeah.
So it lasts really until at least the kids turn 18.
Yeah. They don't work with us
Beyond.
till the kids turn 18. It depends
Right.
on the situation. But
Yeah.
this is an intimate relationship that our clients have with us. So a lot of times they'll come to our weekly legal abuse support group, even when they have nothing going on. They've had nothing going on in court for years, and we feel like they're okay. It's that community that they really love. And I always say we do the very unusual thing in the domestic violence community of blending our male and female clients together, because we firmly believe that abuse is a human issue, not a gender issue. And we want our clients to develop that sort of empathy for each other. And they do. And it is just amazing to see men and women crossing gender lines to really support each other through this.
yeah, that's so, oh my gosh, because you said they're saying that, it's like, it's so true, because otherwise you vilify, it's like, that's it. If you've been, abused by a man, you're a female and you've been abused by a man, I could see it's just like you shut them all out because
Right.
they're so terrified. And here's an opportunity to heal together. And
Yeah,
Right.
and there were biases and like misconceptions in both directions, right? Like you mentioned, like there's this power dynamic where it's a patriarchy in our society, right? So that's a true thing. There's also a thing that men have to deal with, where talking about being the victim of the abuse of a woman makes us not conform to like this societal ideal of being strong,
yes.
self-reliant and not asking for directions and that kind of thing. So there are pressures of different kinds on both sides.
Yeah. And I think it's helpful too for us to also approach it from the fact that we are a couple in real life for 10 years, and to have the male and female perspective on domestic violence. Like yesterday, we were talking to a man and he started crying. He said, "Oh, I feel so stupid. Like here I am, a man. I shouldn't be bawling on camera." And we're like, what do you mean? Like, of course you should be crying. Like everybody cries. We, at the beginning of every support group, we say you never need to apologize for crying, cursing, kids, critters, your complexion, doing chores, sitting in your car, like all kinds of things. So
I cried every day for months when my marriage first ended, and they were just in that aftermath. It was probably 2-3 months. It was like a daily routine. At like 8 a.m, I'd be just start crying. So
yeah, and you got to get it out.
Well, it's cathartic, right? Like it's a release that, but I know in our society for men, it's like, you're seen as weak. And I'm just kind of even visualizing a DV support group. Majority, I'm thinking it's probably female, right? And then a couple males that show up. That's so brave and I think strong. The opposite. I think they see themselves, right, as weak, but actually it's so strong to be able to be emotional and expressive in that way.
Yeah. And also, I think it's important for women to hear the male perspective. Like some of our most extreme cases are male victims. Like one of our clients recently, his ex showed up with her partner and a gun, and in front of their daughter, like they basically threatened to kill him. And he was terrified. And he spent the next 3 nights on a floor of a friend's house from church, just terrified. And then it was like, what am I going to do? And his ex had also committed identity theft. This is 3 or 4 years after they divorced.
Wow.
And that's one of the hallmarks of cases like these is our exes whose anger does not subside. So hearing his story, I think a lot of the women are like, wow. I mean, here's a man in terror for his life and for his kids' lives. So it's not just women who experience that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. So are these groups virtual? Is it, and how big are they? Because people, I know when I try to refer clients sometimes to group work, Dr. Frank, they get all nervous about it. Like,
So our group is one of our client, we call it a client perk. And so that's what's included as part of their support. And so we screen all of our clients, and everybody there, is someone that we know generally, but our clients tend to really love it. Like they really enjoy coming. A lot of them who don't come can't come because it's on Sundays, and some of them are in church or they have their kids with them, but they really like it. And like I said, there's a number of people that we have that just keep coming. And I think it's not because we're just talking about court stuff. We're talking about other issues, communication issues, how to deal with the holidays when your child isn't with you and you feel, or other people who totally don't understand. What happens when your kids aren't talking to you because they've been brainwashed by your ex and people think that somehow you must have done something wrong.
I think an important thing to mention here too is that it's, not to say at all that Lisa and I have the only good support group by any means, but just be careful if you are thinking about finding a group. There's lots of like these big public forums like on Facebook and other places where there's really not a lot of control over who's attending the group.
Mm-hmm.
We find that those groups tend to be filled with abusers themselves. Because if you think of it, a lot of the people our clients are dealing with, they have some, Lisa and I are not mental health professionals. We're not qualified to diagnose anyone, but the behaviors are very consistent with narcissism or borderline or some of those common conditions. And that one of their core things is projection. Their story is, I was the victim, right? My ex abused me. And some of them are really convincing, and they get into these groups. We even, Lisa, if you recall years ago, there was one person running an in-person group.
2.
That's right. There were 2 that were sort of local to our area. It was when we were just getting started, and they were as toxic as anyone. So be super, super careful of what sources you turn to, whether it's groups or information online. We always tell our clients no doom scrolling. There's lots of awful stuff out there. So just be selective and careful with where you get your support.
Yeah,
right. You want to feel better. You want to feel better, not worse after coming out of one of these things.
Okay. And what else what are signs? Like, what should they be looking for as, indicators?
So I think, there's so many groups out there, so it's hard to tell. But just like with a therapist, you need to feel like there's a rapport. You need to feel comfortable. We tend to like groups like ours that are focused on resolution. Chris and I belong to something called the Amicable Divorce Network, which seems like an oxymoron because we're high conflict divorce strategists. But our goal is child-centered divorce. So we like to be what's called positive advocates, meaning that, we call it what we do, giving the harsh New York reality check. Like, this is what it is, like whether you like it or not, but we want to try to turn down the volume of the conflict. So we want to tell you what's best for, what might be best for you in terms of saving time and money and energy with the legal stuff, but also to consider the extraordinary impact that it has on your children the more you fight. So when we meet people who are like, I deserve this and I need this and the court's biased and blah, 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 like, we're just sort of like, let's really think of ways to do whatever we can outside of court to try to get this resolved, to not think that a judge is going to validate your feelings and you're going to get some huge justice like they do in the movies, but that this is a very delicate process. And if you have children, you really need to think about how what you're doing impacts them. And even if your ex is very difficult, there's ways you can turn the volume down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So groups that really fire up, like, you should have this and the court has to change, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not helpful because it's going to take decades for things to change. And at least it's going to take longer than your own case. So we always say, let's focus back on you. Let's take care of yourself and get you through this. And then you can go, as Chris says, like, go with the people carrying the, what is it, Chris, the torches and
the pitchforks.
Pitchforks, yeah.
Yep.
Like first, let's focus on you. It's the trauma response to say, I'm going to do this, and now come back here. Yeah.
But that's what you change the system is ground level, win your case, or at least. And when I say win, that's a loaded word, right? That doesn't mean you get everything you want. It means you get out intact in a way that you and your children can move forward in life, not clicking your heels from joy about every aspect of it, but in a way you can survive and have a good life.
That seems really hard to me from my experience of like watching and even my own personal experience. Like when you engage attorneys, they're all about, right? They want you, they make you feel like you need to fight. I think I'm generalizing, but a lot of times they want you to win and they want you to win as much as possible. And there's this feeling you come into it where it like incites things, it escalates things. So
some of them market that way, right? And some of them also, this is another thing we've noticed, is that even in regular divorce, it's normal to be mad at each other, right? Something is tearing apart this thing that started this union that was not intended to be torn apart. So it's resentment and anger, something happened. That's normal. But a lot of people say like, oh, my ex is a narcissist, right? And people like, all people say that. Lawyers know that. Family law attorneys are not dumb. And a lot of them will market themselves as experts in dealing with narcissists, not because they are, but because they know it's going to get business in the door. Oh yeah, narcissist. Oh, I'm very knowledgeable about that, right? That's how they get business. So we always tell our clients, you do not need an attorney who is an expert in narcissism, but you do need to become pretty knowledgeable yourself. And as Lisa said earlier, take strategic oversight where you fill in the gaps in what the attorney doesn't know. The attorney hopefully knows the law, advocates strongly for you, has clear billing practices, communicates well. All that stuff is attorney stuff. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be some stuff that's different about your case, and you need to be more active, more of a leadership role because of it.
Right. And the pitfall attorneys that you described, those are the ones we don't want our clients to hire because they're going to inflame the conflict. So yes. We prefer people who have very good social emotional skills, who know how to deal with bullies, because often your ex is going to choose an attorney just like themselves. So you want your lawyer to be able to litigate, but to try to do everything possible to keep it outside of court and make sure that the power stays in your hands rather than having strangers make huge decisions for you and your family.
Oof. Where were you when I needed you? Probably there. I'm telling you.
We weren't there for ourselves when we needed us either, right? We didn't.
But you're here now. I guess that's the bonus.
We'll worry about the next wave of people. That's
it. I just think about that support group. I would have loved to have had that because I did feel like I was losing my mind and no one understood because to what everyone saw, we were perfect. We were the perfect couple. We had the perfect business. We had the great kids, Montessori school, the whole. And so when it went off the rails, it was hard to believe that he was the problem. Well, I was part of the problem. So I'm not
right. It added to that problem of not being believed, right? The disbelief when you talk about what was really happening. People are, what?
What?
Yeah, you?
Denise, what you're describing, it makes me think of the experience of a lot of our clients who tend to be, in general, very highly educated, successful professionals. And so they have this added layer of shame because people look at them as role models in the community or like the perfect this. And so often we hear things like, well, a friend might say, I never thought you would fall for someone like that, or how could you have gotten involved, that not understanding that this affects not high conflict divorce, but domestic violence affects 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to understand that the reason that you were targeted was not because you're foolish. It's because you are so amazing and so successful and empathic and creative and responsible and all those wonderful things that's what made you a target, because parasites latch onto people they can feed off of. So for you to be so incredible, that's why they chose you, and they've been manipulative probably since adolescence. So it's not you, it's that, instead of blaming yourself, think, I must have been this amazing person for them to choose me.
Yeah,
They're not going to choose a loser.
that's one of the great joys of what Lisa and I do is our clients, we love them. Like, they're a joy to work. They're the most wonderful people. We call them sweetie pies. And we love being in that community because they're just shining stars.
Yeah, they're the best people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just think about like every day, and I think Denise can relate to this too. Like the fact that you're giving every day, you're opening your heart and you're just full of compassion for our clients and helping people through really tough times and watching them transform and grow. It's the most rewarding work.
It really is.
So true.
Yes, it is.
I can definitely relate to that.
And you can see physically, even though we work with everyone on camera, we don't meet in real life, but you can see them physically change. Like, a lot of people hold their breath when they're in the midst of it, and you start seeing them relax and their facial expression changes. A lot of them look younger and healthier. And you're just like, remember how you were? We have a hashtag called From Puddle to Ninja, because people arrive in this messed up thing. They're like, oh, I feel so bad. And we're like, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And they start to change often pretty quickly when they do the work. And it's just incredible. And so we also like to remind them of the progress that they're making along the way. Because it's not like there's this one end thing. And often it doesn't feel like things are changing. And Chris, I don't know if you can grab our little balloon man, but this symbol. So when during our group and during sessions, when a client says something good that's happened, we show them the balloon man, which Chris will show you now. Hold it up, Chris.
Yeah.
Oh, that. I love that thing.
The dancing.
Yes.
That's our victory symbol.
Oh, that's so good. So good. And like it's small victories, right? So small increments of empowerment, because that's when things started shifting for me. That's what it felt like. I got every time I succeeded, I got stronger and stronger and stronger. I remember I used to feel like I was obligated to take the phone call. I knew I was going to get chewed out, but I felt like I got to answer. And then the day that I blocked the call, I was like, hell yeah. Take that.
Yeah, exactly.
Take that. No, I do not have to take your phone call.
And sometimes it's that simple. It's someone saying, like, you don't have to do that, because in your head, their voice is there and it stays long after you're out of the relationship. And so one thing that we do I credit a friend of mine named Karen McMahon, is we help get your ex out from squatting between your ears, because they've been living there for too long.
So good. So many good tools. Where does a person start?
In terms of finding us?
And just like from here, so our listener, they're listening to you right now, and they're saying, yes, that's me. So I guess, yes.
The first thing we ask when we get on an initial call with someone, just to hear their story and hear what they're all about, is where are you in the process? Mm-hmm. Are you still in the relationship and considering what you're going to do, or you haven't done anything yet? Are you in the middle of some divorce that's going off the rails, custody battle, whatever it is? Or are you already out and you're going back over something, or it's especially high conflict from a co-parenting standpoint? Like, where are you? That really is the first question when we're talking about next steps. And then after that, I mean, these cases are so complicated in many cases. Our second question is, like, what's the biggest concern you have right now? Because there are going to be 20 answers to that, but what's the biggest one? What is causing you to lose sleep? Let's start there, and when we tackle that one, or at least get a handle on that one, we move on to the next one. And it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One forkful at a time, right? And recognize and acknowledge and accept that it's going to probably take a while. There are very few simple solutions. You got to have, as Lisa said earlier, that marathon mindset, and you need the support to keep up your strength to make it through that marathon.
I think it's also really important if when you start realizing this, and by the way, we have a little toxic relationship quiz on our website that Chris should get the credit for. It's a long one. It's 33 questions. And we were told, oh, that's too long, but people love taking it because as they're taking it, it's validating like, oh my gosh, this is me. This is me. When you realize that you're in one of these unhealthy relationships, I think if you're considering separation, you really have to do it differently. So a lot of times people say, oh, you got to file something right away. And then your ex is on the defense. And think about an animal that's attacked and stuck in a corner. They will fight back really hard. So we always say, let's not start with filing motions and going after them with all the accusations. We want to be like, let's figure out how we can keep things as calm and peaceful as possible, ways to stroke their ego. Like, I know things didn't work out between us, but, maybe we can figure out a way to come up with some kind of schedule. What do you think? What would you like? Even though you're not going to listen to everything they say, you have to start disarming them from the very beginning, not attacking. So that's something that's very different than typical divorce.
Oh.
Because attorneys naturally it comes off as like, okay, we're going to go in now for the attack.
So those are the ones we don't want we don't, but that's part of strategic oversight is that, and you have support that's telling you this has to be handled differently. If you meet with an attorney and says, let's start filing motions and get whatever, to say, I don't know, I think that's going to enrage my ex and we have kids. So I want to try to do it a little bit differently unless we absolutely have to. I mean, you want to listen to legal advice, but one thing people don't realize is they have options sometimes. It's your life. That lawyer wants to get your case done and be done with it as much as possible. But you're the one who has to live with whatever happens. So you have to take it very seriously and not just follow some proprietary advice that's given to everybody and feel like it's that same dynamic as when you were in the unhealthy relationship where you gave your authority to this other person. They told you what to do and you just listened. Now you have the opportunity with your lawyer to say, I don't know about that. Like, I don't think that's going to work for me, and learn to question and say things like, help me understand why we would do that instead of this. But be part of that conversation instead of just, okay, I'll do whatever my lawyer says, even when it doesn't feel right.
That's important. That's an important point you're making, because I think we just, we see lawyers and doctors like, people that we're supposed to just listen to. They're experts.
And we're coming out of a relationship where the dynamic was one of, you had no power, right? You yielded all your power to your partner, and then you go from that right to the same thing with an attorney, where you say, save me, and you drop a big box of stuff on their desk and think it's going to be okay.
Right. And attorneys don't like that either, because they say, then when people say, I spent $30,000 and nothing even happened, the attorney's like, hey, well, I've been billing you. I've been talking to you all the time. Like, that's where the money went. And don't blame me when you haven't been participated in this case. So it's so important to understand exactly what's going on. And, we certainly made mistakes. I was best friends with my attorney for a year.
Right. So not using them as your therapist. That's another point.
All the time. We see that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not trained.
No. And the bills are racking up.
Yeah.
Who can afford that?
Right. Yeah. Right. But people think, well, my attorney knows everything, and they just rush to the attorney. I mean, I was interviewing an attorney. She said, one of my clients called me up and was like, my wife is going to the mailbox. What do you think she's doing? And she's like, I don't know. But why are you calling?
Right.
But that's what we do. So that's one thing that Chris and we say we kind of fill in what attorneys are not trained to do and therapists don't understand. The attorneys are trained in logic. They're not trained in domestic violence most of the time. And even if they are, it's super expensive and they have other cases. So they can't give you all the attention that you need. And therapists often don't understand the trauma associated with legal abuse, of being stuck in there, but there's no easy solution. And you just have to keep living like this and still continue to parent your kids. And there's ways to be as self-regulated as possible, but sometimes therapists give really awful legal advice. We just had a client like 2 weeks ago they finalized their parenting schedule after a year and a half. And then the kid went to a therapist, and the therapist told the kid in front of the mother, you don't have to go to your dad's if you don't want to. just don't worry about it. Just don't go. And then the police will be called and they'll get an attorney for you and whatever, but it'll be okay. And it was
Oh
like,
my
what?
goodness.
So, and then she said to our client, you are not protecting your child if you're forcing him to go see his father when he doesn't want to. And I was like, oh my gosh, she could have ended up in huge legal trouble if she followed that advice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, therapeutically sound, but a
Yes.
judge would probably disagree with the recommended path. And
And
it's not obvious I'm being like really facetious there. Like a judge is going to slam you for doing that.
That. It's not always fair. And that's the other part. That's what I learned, that it's not fair. And just take that word out of your vocabulary, because fair has nothing to do with it. Yeah.
It's the same as I was saying earlier, Denise. It's not about winning. It's not about fairness. There's a lot of stuff from my own settlement, like where we ended up agreeing, that I don't like, that didn't work in my favor. But there are things that work very well in my favor. And I just need, I cannot dwell on whatever. The system is not designed for these cases. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. And I just live with that stuff. And
isn't it like you win some and you lose some? No one walks away feeling like this was successful overall, feeling like it was fair. It feels like you have to lose. In my case, it certainly felt like I
lost.
I
felt like I lost too. I walked away from the business, the home. I walked away from everything, but I had the kids.
Yeah.
And so that was the win.
Yeah.
And now we're 18 years later? So it was a long time ago.
You can go win life. That's how you deal with this stuff. You get out in a way that you can live with, and then go win life.
Right. But there's there's three emotions that we associate with people going through this, because it doesn't feel like you can go win anything when you're in the muck of it. Like, and you don't want to hear people think, oh, you can go win in light. Not right now. Yeah. So I remember, it's really rage, injustice, and despair. Every day through those 10 years, every single day, I would wake up, and for a moment I would have not known where I was. And then I'd be like, oh my God, this is so unfair. I can't believe this is happening. I was so angry, and I wasn't even angry at my ex. I was angry that the system allowed this to go on. And then that extraordinary sense of injustice and the despair. It's like, this is never going to end. We've been doing this for dozens of court appearances. I already won. He got 5 counts of contempt. Like, why hasn't the judge enforced these orders? It was so maddening. And I talked to my daughter's therapist at one point, because I was like, I can't, I'm so angry all the time. And she said, what is it that you're worried about? And I said, I just feel like I'm never going to be heard. Like, no one's ever going to do anything. And she told me to add one word to that. She said, yet. So instead of I'm never going to be heard, change it into the judge hasn't heard my story yet, or the orders have not been enforced yet. And that just changed everything. I mean, it didn't make everything go away, but it made me like, she's right. And that yet took a while, but it did come. And so we often tell our clients the same thing. It hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen. So what we need to do is keep you from giving up too soon. We always say our clients don't lose. They give up too soon. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot. So you really, really need that support along the way. But you can learn all these skills.
So what, in terms of a support system, what should they be, someone who's going through this, aside from working with a team like you, for, that kind of stuff, what else should they have? Should they have a therapist? Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well,
talk about the table.
Yeah. So we use the analogy of a table. If you think of a table with only, we think of the support you have as each leg of the table, right? So you have your attorney, you have friends and family, you have a therapist. That's 3 legs. This table can stand on 3 legs, but the 4th leg is a role like what Lisa and I do. And a table is much more stable with 4 legs than with 3, right? But when you're talking about specifically with therapy, I saw 2 different therapists while I was going through all my stuff. And the first one had no clue, just didn't know how to deal with this kind of thing. Didn't even recognize, never said the word narcissism, never brought up like that it was an abusive relationship. Nothing, didn't recognize any of that. That was harmful. That wasn't even like, because I was looking for support and not finding it. So it was like invalidating of how I felt at the time. My next therapist was terrific. But it really is about finding the right therapist. Lisa mentioned rapport. That's crucial, especially if they have a background in helping, victims of abuse, or, we use the term trauma informed, right? They've got the vocabulary and the understanding of these specific issues. So to say, just to understand a therapist is not like the same as any other therapist. They have different specialties and backgrounds, and find the right one.
Yeah. Something you always talk about too, Dr. Frankie, right? Finding the right therapy, the
Absolutely.
right therapist. Yeah. And when you need one. So I did have a therapist. The kids had a therapist. I had a therapist. I could have even had one more. That's him.
Yeah.
Also, Lisa touched on something important. Like, you have to follow your gut. Just because they have all the degrees and, right, like the PhD or whatever, how does it feel to be in their presence? Do you feel like they can help you?
Mhm.
Are they knowledgeable, right? It's like, follow that gut instinct. It's really never wrong.
Yeah, and some of the therapists our clients have told us about have their own things that they haven't really resolved yet, that when these cases are brought up, they sort of bring a lot of their own baggage to it. That's not always helpful.
Yeah. Need to have good boundaries.
Yeah.
So, folks, how can folks find you? Tell us how, Chris and Lisa.
Oh, very easy. We're everywhere. We're at our website is beentheregotout.com. No punctuation, just all the way straight through it. Our main social media platform is Instagram. We are also, like, that's kind of where we start, and we are Been There Got Out with underscores between the words on Instagram. We also have a presence on Facebook. We publish our long form videos to our YouTube channel, and there's over 250, I believe. We crossed 250 at this point, and they're long, deep interviews that we repurpose to our podcast. Lisa just held up our book. That's available on Amazon. We're working on the second one right now. We try to be everywhere.
Just Been There Got Out. You'll find us. Our emails are lisa@beentheregotout.com and Chris @beentheregot. It's just the two of us, so it's one of us that answers you.
And any last thoughts that you want to impart to our listeners that we didn't touch on? Yeah.
It's so much better on the other side. It's so frightening when you are thinking, oh, I should stay for the sake of the kids, or I'm going to ruin my kids. That's how I felt. I'm going to ruin my kids' lives if I break up this family. But it's so much better for everybody to not be modeling an unhealthy relationship, because it affects not just your kids, but future generations.
So don't stay in for the kids.
Nope.
The opposite. Absolutely the opposite. My boys are 21 and 18 now. Lisa has two kids also about 3 years older, her two. And they have now, all four of them have seen us in a healthy relationship, having disagreements, working through them, like all the things in a normal, healthy relationship for more than a decade, almost half their lives.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful thing.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And what's great is seeing them, at least my kids, in healthy relationships so far, knock wood. But I think it's changed things.
It's a good sign, for sure.
Yeah.
Moving in the right direction.
Hope so.
Yeah. Such a pleasure. Thank you for the work that you do. Truly, people need you.
You're welcome. We love it.
Yeah.
I can tell. Well, folks, find them. Find Chris and Lisa for support if you're feeling like this is resonating. Denise and I, we could have used them, really.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. Kisses, hugs. Take really good care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.